All right, it looks like we're ready to go live here, gang. There we are. It's getting quicker now. That's cool. When you look at this operating broadcasting system here, it's telling you, all right, you're about to go live, and then boom, you're live, and it's kind of cool. Well, it's doing it a lot quicker now. I think I have a better connection. Greetings, everyone. Great to see everybody out there. Come on in. One and all, great to have you here. It is Live Stream Friday. I'm Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, here to always help you to think better so you can feel better. He's crazy and turbulent and woke and insane, but increasingly amazing time. So make sure to click on that. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You can click on it too if you want. We've got a lot to talk about here today. Super chats are up, so send me your questions. See the comments already coming on in. Say, guys, good to see you all. Battle Cross. Hello and good morning, Dr. Steve. I love that tag, Battle Cross. Very good. Ellen Hunt, love you too, Ellen. Louise, hi from the UK. Oh, Louise, I miss it. I haven't been back to the UK, I don't even know, since I graduated from Durham. What was that, 2013? Gosh. Oh, I used to love, I was out there at least 2 or 3 times a year. I love it. I love it. Have a John Smith's and remember me for it. I don't think we get John Smith's over here, unfortunately. One of my favorite beers out there. My, do we have 2 taboo subjects on our headlines today. Fortunately, they're in the headlines, so I think we're okay, right? We could talk about them, right? The nation of Denmark has ceased issuing the COVID vaccine to everyone under 50. We're going to be looking at the details of that. They're absolutely fascinating. And we've got a judge striking down mail-in ballots as unconstitutional. This is on the heels of a very similar ruling just weeks back coming out of Wisconsin, where their Supreme Court ruled also that mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting alike, was totally unconstitutional, was banned from their state. So this is a game changer in terms of the upcoming midterms and, of course, 2024, which we could talk about. Super chats are up, so ask me your questions, whatever you want to talk about, especially with the upcoming midterm elections. But more than that, these 2 back-to-back developments here really indicate that the tide is turning. We really are moving into a post-COVID and increasingly post-globalist world. Of course, those two were very much interconnected. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Great way to finish off our week. I'll be dealing with your, I'll deal with your questions. I'm going to answer your questions. I will with honor receive your questions all throughout the broadcast. We got the super chat on, and I will be answering them at the end so as not to interrupt the flow, as it were. Shoot me your questions. This is going to be an awesome live stream. But first, gang, how many gold and silver fans do I got out there? I know the vast majority of you are gold and silver fans. You love the timeless value of gold and silver. People of faith, family, and freedom have loved gold and silver for generations. And you are really going to love it during these particularly insane inflationary times, thanks to Bike Ride and Biden, right? But have you taken the next step and secured your savings in your retirement with that kind of value? If not, you've got to talk to our amazing friends over at Gold Co. They are patriots just like us. They're going to be friends. You're going to love them. And if you click on that link below, they're going to help you out set up an IRA, a 401k, or savings account secured in gold. Now, if you have $50,000 or more in your IRA, 401k, or savings account, they're going to show you exactly how to protect those assets from bumbling Biden's insanity with the timeless value of gold and silver. So click on that link below. Get to know these amazing patriots. They're here for you. They want you to succeed so much. They're offering up to $10,000 in free silver if you open up an account with them. But this is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. Wow. 2 amazing back-to-back developments in the span of just 24 hours. So, number 1, COVID vaccines have been banned in the nation of Denmark for anyone under the age of 50. Just hours after that was announced, a Delaware judge of all people, right? Can anything good come out of Delaware? A Delaware judge of all people ruled that mail-in ballots are indeed unconstitutional and will not be allowed in the midterms, in the 2022 election. So, in other words, vaccine mandates and election integrity, right? These two, up to this point, very taboo subjects on social media, without a doubt, two of the single most important issues of the last 2 years, issues so important to the rule and reign of the permanent political class, we haven't been allowed to talk about them openly. Well, now they're starting to make the headlines, right? These two issues, these pillars upon which the permanent political class have perched themselves above us to rule us, to coerce us, to mandate, to manipulate, these two pillars appear to finally be falling. So let's look at each one in turn here, all right? Let's start with Denmark. Now, before I do anything, obviously I got to give my disclaimer, right? Disclaimer time. I wish if this wasn't a live stream, I'd have something underneath here. Disclaimer alert. I am not a doctor. Well, I am a doctor, but not a useful one. I'm a doctor who hangs out in libraries, not laboratories, all right? So I am not a medical doctor. I am by no means an expert in epidemiology. I'm just an old PhD trying to understand social, political, and cultural trends. That's it. So with that full disclaimer in place, here is the latest on what's going on in Denmark. So this is from the suburban.com. Denmark halts. Now I'm getting a Denmark, I should just say BANS. Denmark halts, HALTS, COVID vaccinations for low-risk people under 50. Denmark Health Authority has announced that it is halting COVID vaccinations for people under 50, except for those who are at high risk of severe illness as a result of COVID, and healthcare and seniors care workers in close contact with those who may become very ill from COVID. So clearly there are exceptions here. That's important to be clear. But this is directly from the Danish Health Authority website in English. In addition, we recommend that relatives of persons at particularly higher risk accept the offer of vaccination to protect their relatives who are at particularly higher risk. In answer to the question, quote, why are people aged under 50 not to be revaccinated? The site responds, quote, the purpose of the vaccination program is to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Therefore, people at the highest risk of becoming severely ill will be offered booster vaccination. The purpose of vaccination is not to prevent infection with COVID-19, and people aged under 50 are therefore currently not being offered booster vaccination. So that's the idea of the ban here. We're seeing a very clear banning of the vaccine mandate. We're seeing a very clear banning of widespread vaccine recommendations for healthy people under the age of 50, with very clear exceptions, such as healthcare workers or people with health issues or who are around those with health issues. And it concludes as well, quote, people aged under 50 are generally not at particularly higher risk of becoming severely ill from COVID-19. In addition, younger people aged under 50 are well protected against becoming severely ill from COVID-19, as a very large number of them have already been vaccinated and have previously been affected with COVID-19, and there's consequently good immunity among this part of the population. Again, that is directly from the Danish Health Authority. So obviously this is a dramatic shift. This is a dramatic shift from the public policy that dominated Western nations for the good part of 2 years. Now, while Denmark wasn't as hardcore as, say, Austria was with vaccine mandates, or France for that matter, They did issue a COVID passport that required proof of vaccination or recovery from the virus or a negative test in order to access much of public and social life, including restaurants, cinemas, hairdressers, you name it. So this halting of all vaccines, with due exceptions, for the whole of their population under the age of 50 is a pretty dramatic turn of events. No question about that. Now, what's so interesting here is that this is all part of a very noticeable shift away from government-enforced mandates going on throughout the whole of the West, particularly here in the United States. Fox News just reported on this 3 days ago. Yeah, September 13th. Fox News reported on the collapse of vaccine mandates for U.S. servicemen in the Navy. Okay, the headline from Fox reads, Navy quietly rolled back punishments for Navy SEALs seeking religious exemptions to the COVID vaccine. It's really fascinating. It's basically an article detailing how an order that was passed last year that required all Navy SEALs to be vaxxed, irrespective of any kind of religious sentiment or conscientious objection and the like. That order is being quietly rolled back as a result of a lawsuit filed on behalf of Navy SEALs who were seeking a religious exemption. Again, what's so astonishing when it comes to our globalist elite, our managerial class, is how condescending and frankly dismissive they are regarding the indispensable role of religion in a flourishing public square. They frankly look at religion as nothing more than a persistent hangover from the Dark Ages. So the freedoms guaranteed to us in the First Amendment, specifically when it comes to religion, they're just completely dismissed and derided and treated with utter contempt by our managerial liberal cosmopolitan class. So the good news, again, as we're seeing here with this Fox News report, is that patriots are stepping up. They're fighting back. They're pushing back against these unconstitutional mandates. So the tide is clearly turning on this. We're moving more and more into a post-COVID world where the draconian mandates are not just receding, but, and for me this is huge, they're losing any plausibility of a return. It's not just that they're receding. They've lost the capacity to return. We have to keep in mind we're no longer in a pre-COVID context when mass populations were basically asleep at the wheel. We were pretty clueless in terms of what was going on, right? I know there were a lot of good patriots out there who were warning us. They saw what was coming. But now, here we are, 2.5 years later. Now we have the advantage point of hindsight, and we have the advantage of court precedent working overwhelmingly in our favor. Virtually everything Biden and the CDC tried to pull on us has been struck down by the courts. SCOTUS struck down his vax mandate for businesses with over 100 employees. A federal judge struck down the vax mandate on federal employees and contractors. The only thing that they allowed for was the limited mandate on healthcare workers, citing historical precedent for that particular field, but no other. We never had in our history the federal government, let alone the CDC, come in and institute these one-size-fits-all federal mandates for vaccine requirements. Never had it, and thanks to the Supreme Court, it looks like we'll never have it again. The mask mandate on airlines, of course, got struck down by the courts. A Louisiana judge struck down the ban on public worship as unconstitutional. The only thing in the end that we have to worry about at this point, with the federal government reined in, and the courts have done a brilliant job at that, the only thing we have to worry about is the individual states we live in. If you're in one of the 30 red states, And frankly, even in most of the blue states, you don't have anything to worry about from this point forward. We're moving into a post-COVID world. But if you're in a real wacky blue state, yeah, or in one of the city municipalities, the insane cosmopolitan, increasingly imploding urban areas, yeah, you may have some things to worry about. The powers that be there and that local specificity may start issuing mandates. But federal level and the vast majority state level, it looks like we are finally entering into a post-COVID world. Now, the second development in all of this is that we now have a judge that has officially smacked down mail-in voting, particularly no excuse mail-in voting that came to the fore in 2020. Smacked it down as officially unconstitutional. This is a huge development. And before we get into that, gang, let's show Mike Lindell some support here. Let's show him some love by clicking on the link below and grabbing some awesome MyPillow products. You all know what Mike is going through right now. He needs our support more than ever. And Mike's returning the favor. He's offering his lowest prices ever on all of his products if you use my code Turley. That's your promo code, Turley. So you can get the classic MyPillow, which is normally $69.98. It's almost $70. You can now get that for under $20. Okay, it's absolutely amazing. And that applies to over 200 products in their catalog. So don't wait, click on that link below. Let's support Mike. He needs it more than ever. And let's get the best savings in return as well. All right. So believe it or not, this latest ruling, well, I already told you, it's happening in my own home state here of Delaware. It's not technically my home state. I grew up in Connecticut in the greater New York area. But I've been in Delaware for basically 20 years. And yeah, I mean, this is an amazing ruling. He just struck down mail-in voting. This is from Delaware Live. Delaware Judge halts mail-in voting. A Chancery Court judge has ruled Delaware's new mail-in voting provision unconstitutional. An 87-page memorandum opinion issued Wednesday afternoon, Vice Chancellor Nathan Cook said allowing mail-in voting in the November 8th general election will result in the dilution of constitutional votes with unconstitutional votes. Cook issued an injunction that will prevent the Department of Elections from accepting applications for no excuse absentee ballots. I'll talk about that in a second. If I were to enjoin the vote by mail statute, then the courts would be faced with the impossible task of unscrambling the eggs of an election undermined by unconstitutional votes. This is the ruling. Given these considerations, plaintiffs will suffer irreparable injury if the vote-by-mail statute is not enjoined, and doing so is necessary to the interests of justice. Furthermore, the fact that votes will be cast under this unconstitutional law means that the election will not be conducted in strict accordance with our Constitution. As plaintiffs note, it would be virtually impossible to unwind this election. And so this Delaware judge has just basically banned mail-in voting. This is a ruling that was handed down in relation to a suit brought about by the Republican Party of Delaware. They challenged the vote by mail statute that was passed by our Democrat-dominated legislature, signed into law by our Democrat governor. Everything's Democrat in Delaware. It's the saddest thing in the world. I can't even believe I'm here. But and in terms of what no excuse mail-in voting is, when all is said and done, I'm just going to boil it down. No excuse mail-in voting allows anyone and everyone to vote by mail. Okay? Historically, voting by mail, like an absentee ballot, there's no difference. Mail-in voting and absentee ballots are the exact same thing. Historically, you had to have some kind of valid excuse to not vote in person, to vote by mail, right? To be absent at the polls. You had to have been overseas. You had to be bedridden. You had to have some serious issue preventing you from going to the polls. Now Democrats, and again, that's key. It's not Republicans doing this. It's Democrats. Now Democrats want to make mail-in ballots the new norm. And so they're passing things like this no-excuse mail-in ballots in all these deep blue states to allow people to vote by mail for any reason they want. So in effect, this judge just smacked that down. This new vote by mail law enacted earlier this year in Delaware is, according to this ruling, unconstitutional, and voting by mail cannot be used in the November election. That is the no excuse. You could, of course, still do your absentee ballot and the like, but it's a very, very significant ruling. And it comes on the heels of the recent Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling that I'm sure many of you heard about. I think I've got one. Yeah, I've got one from I love this headline. This is from Slate.com, the ultra-left website, Slate.com. Wisconsin Supreme Court bans drop boxes, suggests Biden's 2020 victory was illegitimate. Now, again, YouTube, this is a headline I'm reading from Slate.com, left-wing site, mocking it, okay? That's not me saying that, so please don't hurt us here. But this was back in July, so literally weeks ago. It was a 4-3 vote among the conservative majority on the Wisconsin court. They basically declared that every single ballot cast by means of drop boxes were totally illegal and invalid. Period. I mean, it was a dramatic ruling. Obviously very controversial. You can look it up. It's fascinatingly controversial, but obviously so in our very partisan times. But they came out and said, look, hundreds of thousands of ballots, there's no way around it. We're illegal. We're illegally cast in Wisconsin. So there you go. I mean, there's now a court precedent that said that hundreds of thousands of votes cast in the state were illegal and illegitimate. Again, these are not my words. This is not my opinion. This is the ruling of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And in turn, the court ruled that most ballot drop boxes just are not allowed in the state, and that a voter cannot have someone else return their completed absentee ballots on their behalf. So if you don't know, Wisconsin's legislature is dominated by Republicans, but unfortunately they have a hardcore leftist governor, so they haven't been able to pass election integrity laws. Well, now they don't have to. The Supreme Court stepped in and did it for them. Wisconsin is not going to be able to reduplicate the election processes that were enacted in 2020. And if you combine that with the comparable election integrity reforms in Georgia and Arizona, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for 2022. That's huge for 2024. So there you go. 2 back-to-back victories here that together, each in their own right, but obviously together, both signal that the tide is turning and the world is moving, however frustratingly, slowly, and turbulently, and 3 steps forward and 2 steps back and the like. I know, I'm with you. But regardless, however frustratingly, the world is indeed moving away from the globalist technocrats, the managerial class that have usurped our politics, taking political decision-making more and more away from local communities, away from the values of faith, family, and freedom that dominate the supermajority of our nation's counties. We're starting to see clear indicators like Denmark's COVID vaccine ban and the increasing ban on unconstitutional voting, that those days of managerial rule over our lives is indeed coming to an end. All right, over to you guys. And by the way, we had a great time last night. It was the online premiere of our brand new movie, The Return of the American Patriot. If you want to see firsthand the miracle that's going on, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania. Remember, Pennsylvania was one of the most rhino-infested states in the nation. In many ways, it made the McCainite Arizona look conservative by comparison. If you want to see how patriots have been rising up all across the state to reform, take back the GOP, and make it into a full-blown patriot party, it's a documentary that's going to inspire you like nothing you've ever seen. So you can get your own access to that movie just by clicking on the link below. You're going to absolutely Love it. All right, what do we got here, Josh? Josh is our moderator, as always. Just a few questions today. You guys are quiet. Who's on? How many people on this live stream right now? 3,000. Come on, let's get more people here. What are you talking? Denmark just banned this freaking vax. Come on, guys. Good stuff. All right, Christiane 747. Hey, you. Well, hey, you. Good to see you. Let's see. Kathleen, hi from Charlottesville. Steve, why do you think Trump showed up at Dulles in his golf shoes? I haven't really, to be honest with you, Kathleen, I haven't followed it very much. I mean, he has property. I mean, he has business in D.C. So I haven't followed it very much to know. I mean, there's tons of conspiracy theories from the left, so I could have had fun with it. I know some people did, but apparently for no major reason. USMC, how are we going to deal with voter fraud in midterms like Pennsylvania's? We know these psychos won't give up their power that easy. Does Pennsylvania and Wisconsin have changes to their voting laws since 2020? All right, so yes, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, not really, a little bit, but not really, because they've had a radical governor, a liberal governor, Wolf, who the top rhinos there, like Jake Corman, are now big supporters of, because they're supporting the Democrat nominee for governor as over and against Doug Mastriano. So they're supporting Josh Shapiro for governor. So they just basically turned themselves into Democrats. So as I understand it, what Mastriano is doing is he's implementing Steve Bannon's precinct strategy, very similar to what Youngkin did in Virginia. We have to understand what Youngkin did in Virginia was basically a textbook campaign for how we're going to take our nation back. It was utterly brilliant. And what he was able to do is he was able to recruit, I think it was about 10,000 poll workers, Patriot poll workers all across the state, who were able to, in a sense, audit the vote as it was coming in. So there wasn't a single, but ideally, there's not a single ballot that's cast that is not confirmed and corroborated in terms of its chain of custody. And that's what Mastriano is doing. Mastriano is going even further. I believe he's looking for 20,000 poll workers, and he's been doing a great job. Remember, he's a former lieutenant colonel. This is he's commanded brigades, as it were. So he knows how to lead, and he knows how to manage, and he knows how to definitely implement strategy and plan together. So that's the way they're doing it. And just keep in mind, I don't think you have to worry about the vast majority of counties in Pennsylvania. They're conservative counties. They're amazing. It's certain counties you want to keep an eye on, and that's what I think they're going to do. He's surging, by the way. I don't know if you saw that in the polls of late now. Real Clear Politics, RCP average, that aggregates all the different polls out there. They now have Mastriano up, and they're now projecting that this is going to be a red pickup. We're going to go from a blue governor to a red governor. So if Mastriano becomes governor, you have to understand Mastriano is going to be DeSantis on steroids. Mastriano is going to be something you've never imagined. I mean, this is going to be so exciting. It's going to be unbelievable. Also, Supreme Court will hear in October. Sorry, TW. Also, Supreme Court will hear in October whether state legislators are the only one that can make voter laws. That's very good point. So that was a huge thing here, where the Constitution appears relatively clear that legislatures have the sole plenary authority for determining the time, manner, and place of an election. And that's been usurped. That's been professionalized, shall we say. It's been farmed out over the last several decades to secretaries of state or election officials, whatever it happens to be. So absolutely, I think that'll be huge, and hopefully that 6-3 or 5-4 majority, conservative majority, is going to come through here. Let's see, what do we got? Brooks Kelly, Marxism is the opiate of the elite. Yes, Marxism is the opiate of the elite. Yeah, and keep in mind, Marxism has changed with the times, hasn't it? it used to be all about economics. That was the 20th century. The 20th century was a century of mercantilism and economy and the birth, more or less, of modern economics and modern economic theory. So those are the only, it seems, those were the meta categories by which Marx was thinking. Today it's culture. Today we're moving more to the tribalism, what Michel Maffesoli referred to as neo-tribalism, where the world would increasingly break up from modernity and post-modernity and return to sort of regional, religious, or racial, tribal organizations around the world. And Marxism adjusted itself to that in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and the like, to cultural Marxism, where it made culture the site of class contestation. And the classes were replaced from upper class, lower class, your bourgeois, and your proletariat. It was replaced now more between oppressor and oppressed. And which class you belong to based on which culture you belong to. A culture that then gets broken down into the three major categories of gender, race, and religion. So if you're the white male Christian, you're responsible for every evil on the planet. That's just a basic Reader's Digest version of what's going on there. So absolutely, this is definitely without question. This has become the opiate, the ideology of the upper class. The upper class has made Marxism. What we have to understand is Marxism has made peace with money. That's a very, very important thing for us to remember. Marxism has made most Marxists are billionaires right now. Okay, they've made their peace with money. They've made their peace with their economy. Now the real battle is the culture wars. That's where they're fighting the battle. And the good news is the more Marxist woke people get, the more they ironically split the left and unite the right. So we're fine. This is why people like Josh Fetterman don't want to debate Dr. Oz, because Dr. Oz is starting to fight the culture war, which is what he's got to do. Mitch McConnell hates it. Mitt Romney hates it. But if you want to win, you got to do a Youngkin. You've got to push CRT. You've got to push all the kinds of insanity that's going in our classrooms. You got to push the fact that they want to open our borders, but they want all kinds of rainbow stuff in our classrooms. You got to push that, and that splits the Democrats, because half the Democrats think that's insane. The Bill Maher's think that's insane. The Piers Morgans thinks that insane. I mean, again, even Elon Musk said he's never voted for a Republican before. The recent election with Maya Flores, when she was the first Republican to win in her 85% Latino district around the Rio Grande region in Texas, first Republican to win that, because so many on the left are so disgusted with wokeism. They don't go there. They don't buy it. Yet, while it's splitting the left, it unites the right, and all the right despises wokeism, which means that in an election, the right is much more likely to vote against this Marxist wokeism than the left is to vote for it. So ironically, this opiate of the permanent political class is precisely the reason why the left is splitting and the right is uniting. So there you go. Let's see. Stephen. Hey, Stephen. Peter, what's your opinion of Peter Zeihan? I don't know the name. Let's see. Let me just look him up here real quick. Oh, an author. Okay, scholar. Geopolitical strategist. Okay, I'm going to have to look him up. You're giving me a wonderful resource there. Let me look at a couple of the books that he's done, see if I'm just the whole in just the beginning. Looks great. Wow, it looks like he's a geopolitical, very much in geopolitical. Well, I'm going to keep this page up here, my friend, Stephen, and I'll check him out. Thank you for the resource. That's awesome. The Jammer. How ironic, Dr. Steve. Joe Biden is now complaining about sending undocumented aliens to the blue states when he caused it because he wanted to flood them in with the red states only. Well put, The Jammer. Well put. Yeah, I mean, we did a video on that. yesterday on how the brilliant strategy of Ron DeSantis in Florida and Greg Abbott in Texas of sending voluntarily, right? That's the key. Everybody has to. They're offered a free ticket to go to New York or to Chicago or to Martha's Vineyard, right? It sounds like a great place to say if you're going to be here illegally. Hey, go to Martha's Vineyard. You're going to love it. Send them to L.A. All that sort of stuff. Absolutely, you got it. This is brilliant because what it does is it brings home the reality that every town is a border town. If you refuse to come, if you in the blue states, which are all up north, right? If you refuse to come down to see what's happening at the border, then we're going to bring the border to you. And guess what? Because you voted for what's happening at the border, good. Now you deal with it. It's absolutely brilliant, and I love how you put it. Biden is now complaining about the fruits of his own policy. And that's exactly right. Again, this was the hope. The hope was they could turn Texas and Florida blue. And the idea was they would turn them blue by with an influx of the Latino vote, which in fairness up for the last couple of decades has been clearly dominated by the left. That's all changing now. And we saw that with the Cuban vote in Florida, particularly in 2020. We're starting to see it in 2018, but it really came to the fore in 2020. We saw it in Virginia in exit polls for Youngkin. One exit poll had 55% Latinos voting for Youngkin. So one exit poll did have Youngkin carrying the Latino vote. And now it's moving westward. So we saw it with Mayra Flores in the Rio Grande. She's not alone. There's another candidate, Villalobos. He was one of the first Republicans to win in his district, again, in like 120 years. And then it kept, and now it's moving into Arizona. I did an interview with Rich Barris yesterday. We should have that up either today or tomorrow on what to expect for the midterms. I'm not going to let you know. It's just, you're going to love it. It's good stuff. He's the most accurate pollster out there, and poll analyst out there. And he thinks Carrie Lake is going to take the Latino vote. It might be just by, 55% or so. But that's, I mean, if she lost the Latino vote by 5 points, that would have been stunning historically, right? When Trump got 35% of Latino votes in 2016, and he got more again in 2020, that was a stunner. Nobody saw that. Nobody among our pundit class. They're pathetic, horrible. We got a political class and we got a pundit class. That's how Rich Barris puts it. And none of them saw it. The Nate Silvers and so all these goofballs, all these fakes. None of them saw that. Well, now 35%. Now we're looking 45, maybe even 55%. So it's all backfired. It's all about, again, it's the same thing. They see the woke nonsense. They see the insanity. They want nothing to do with it. They see a sane party that shares their faith, their Christian faith. Latinos are predominantly Christians, and they are enamored with the concept of freedom. That's why they've come here. All the opportunities that they see here, they realize suddenly it's because of the freedom that we have, and then of course family. So faith, family, and freedom are Latino values, and particularly American Latino values. And now they're becoming hardcore constituents of the new MAGA GOP. It's absolutely wonderful. And that's key. They're attracted to MAGA. They are not attracted to the McConnells or the Mittens Romneys. They're attracted to MAGA. We see that in all the polls. Remember, Trump is always polling higher than any Republican in any race. Okay? So it doesn't matter. You go to Arizona, you go to Georgia, you go to Pennsylvania, you go to Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa. Trump is always polling higher than the Republicans. So that's why when Trump comes in, does a big rally, he pulls up the Republican and they shoot past the Democrat every time, every single time. It's the ones who are implementing the McConnell and Mittens Romney approach of distancing themselves from Trump, like they found out in New York, those are the ones who lose. Those are the ones who end up losing. So they're attracted to populism, the idea that it's the people centered around faith, family, and freedom as over and against this aloof, managerial, hostile, permanent political class that cares nothing about them, just sees you as just a bit in a consumer market and nothing more. That is what unites us all together, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, you name it. That's what brings us all together. So well said. All right, you got me on a roll there. Very good. Let's see. What are your thoughts, Miss Minnesota? Hockey fan. All right. Of course, hockey fans in Minnesota, right? What are your thoughts? Oh, big football fans, too, of course. What are your thoughts? And baseball. All right, stop. What are your thoughts on Minnesota going red? It will eventually, I think. It will eventually because of its strong rural vote. And every year we're looking at it, getting closer and closer red, MAGA red, as it were. But it's going to take some time. I mean, you know, just the liberalism that's dominated Minnesota, and again, in fairness, ironically, it was, as I understand it, originally, you know, an FDR-based, you know, farmer-based, labor-based leftism. So it's the very leftism that is converting over to the right, particularly the white working class. You know, that has morphed into sort of the woke left, and it's gonna take some time to kind of root that cavity out, that rot out, as it were. But it seems like it's where. So I don't know, but it should be in the next 10 years or so. But definitely, what's happened in Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio should definitely hit Minnesota at some time. I should have talked about that with Rich yesterday. That's actually a good follow-up question for a follow-up interview. Tom Greer, hey Tom. Good morning, Dr. Steve. Any thoughts on the potential railroad strike? I've been negligent in doing my due diligence study on that, so I have to take a look at that. I don't have any opinion on that as of yet. Conrad, hey man, good to see you. Hey Steve, you can pay me back later. Any thoughts on Armenia, Azerbaijan? Oh gosh, yeah. All sorts of small regional conflicts seem to be igniting. World War III, yeah, right. Yeah, I'll pay you back later. All right, well, no. If you're not familiar, what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia, it is a kind of, I would argue, it is a kind of clash of civilizations situation. I've read that. I've read an analysis from Sam Huntington's magnificent thesis that seems to be playing out just the way he thought. Wrote it back in the early 90s, and first in an essay and then in book form, called The Clash of Civilizations. And what Huntington argued was the conflicts of the 21st century were going to be conflicts wherever you saw civilizational, contrasting civilizational spheres sort of overlapping with each other. So he used the Balkans, former Yugoslavia, as a perfect example. What do you have in Yugoslavia? You've got Orthodox civilization, you've got Catholic civilization, Zagreb and Croatia and the like, and then you've got Bosnia-Herzegovina and its Islamic civilization. You've got these overlaps here. And as long as you had this radical, secular, atheistic paradigm like communism, sort of clamping those sensibilities down, you were fine. But the moment that globalist, one-size-fits-all secular system collapses, and a lot of people point that out. They'll look at me and say, Turley, man, it's better that you have secularism, because that keeps all the different religions and civilizations from fighting each other. And my response is, it doesn't. First of all, no, it's not better. Imperialism is not, better. Colonialism isn't better. But even if I were to grant that, the question is, can it sustain itself? You can't sustain a system indefinitely by saying, well, if it goes away, bad things will happen. That's consequentialism. Consequentialism only try to dissuade a teenager, right, from certain behaviors just by focusing on consequentialism. Yeah, right. Good luck, right? So the secular one-size-fits-all globalist system erodes, it falls apart, it gets destroyed. And now, in its place, populations return to their identities. So Sam Huntington argued the 20th century is a century of ideology, and now that that's imploding, we're going into a century of identity. We all think of identity politics on the left, but it's a much bigger thing. Identity means going back to culture, custom, tradition, region, land, and most especially religion. And the old religions are rising up again that created the old civilizations. And as they rise up, Huntington argued, watch out, because you'll have a lot of cleft regions where you have two kind of mutually exclusive religious civilizations bumping heads with one another. Obviously, that's what happened explicitly in the Balkans. And it is what seems to be happening with Armenia, Orthodox, and Azerbaijan, more Turkish Islamic. And so, yeah, so they're fighting over some disputed territory there. And no, I don't see World War III there. I do see, I mean, the guys on Alex and Alexander the Duran were saying, I do see a little bit of political opportunism where Azerbaijan and Erdogan in Turkey, they tend to be allies, see Putin and Russia distracted with what's going on in Ukraine, and they see this as a perfect opportunity to make some more regional gains. They could start a little hot conflict with Armenian forces that are generally backed by France and the United States. And while Russia is distracted, they think they can exploit that distraction for their own political gain. Certainly Erdogan's giving them some encouragement to do so. So that's the geopolitical world out there. That's why, again, we don't want to have a lot to do with that. I heard Nancy Pelosi was going to go out to Armenia to show her support. You know, we have a very large Armenian population here, so obviously far more than Azerbaijanis. So she needs to do that, I think. And I do think Armenians, for whatever god-awful reason, generally are Democrats. But anyway. There you go. No, I don't think it's World War III, but it is a hot spot. It is a cleft area. And when the core state, the civilizational state that Huntington believed needed to mediate and mitigate peace, as Russia did and has done in their past conflicts, that's hard to do right now as they're trying to push back against an $80 billion NATO-backed Ukrainian counteroffensive. So we'll see what happens there. But I think it's a little bit opportunist, and I think Putin, the moment he gives them a stern look and says, "Guys, you need to stop," and it's not even guys; it's Azerbaijan, as I understand, who's really been the latest aggressor. They'll have to stop there. All right, Rock Dog, Dr. Stu, no one should believe the Democrats will win a major state race here in Arizona. Yeah, I don't think so. I think Kari Lake and Blake Masters are going to take it. I think they're going to run the board on it at this point. Mark Fincham as well. So amazing stuff. All right, guys, with that, another live stream Friday comes to an end. You guys have been wonderful as always. Great week. We've had an amazing week. And we're going to have another amazing week coming up. So God bless, guys. Stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. God bless, everyone.